maybe Chiara can, and Alberto, and who else was in your team?
Elsie, Zwinik.
Zwinik can make, can contribute and start presenting their ideas.
Shall I start?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, just a minute. Okay, now you're probably able to see my screen, correct?
Yes,
okay.
Yes, we can.
Okay, so I need to put you somewhere else because otherwise I don't read the slides. Oh my God. Okay, so this is very tentative work by Group 1 to find a common ground for discussion, first of all, and then for collaborative work. Have to say that it took us a lot to get acquainted each other, and actually more than it would have probably required in person. But anyway, we managed, and we spent lots of time due to a major misunderstanding discussing about the topic, and then we ended up with working on a different one. So it happens. Anyway, so today we want to present you an idea for a research report. So it's a research, is a proposal for elaborating a research report or a working paper. And the title is Collaborative Digital Social Innovation for Urban Governance, Improving Public Institutions' Responsiveness in Time of Crisis. We start with defining the purposes and building upon the discussion we had yesterday morning before and after Igor's presentation. We wonder how can cities turn into hubs for collaborative digital social innovation. As I say, this is intended to produce a research report and to offer public sectors, so the public sector executives and managers, some kind of operationalizable suggestions on how to trigger and mobilize citizens' collaborative engagement in digital social innovation for, of course, improving the government and the governance performance. We started with the definition of the background and the project rationale. So for what concerned the general contextual conditions and the research hypothesis we identified four, the first one is that we are facing a number of negative effects on health and economic and environmental emergencies, especially climate emergency, which is a bit hidden by the COVID crisis, but actually is a major issue. The second is that we are facing a turmoil, a revolution in the conception and in the power of public institutions and public administrations at the regional and local levels, which is called Governance Beyond the State by Eric Swingedow, for instance, many others, of course. So a different a change in the way in which power is distributed and circulated and mobilized in society. And the third condition is that we are also confronting with the dark sides of the digital revolution premises. We talked about some of them in these days, and I'm not going to repeat them because it's redundant. And the last point is that at the same time, we are assisting to a mushrooming of initiatives from digital innovators, social entrepreneurs, and change makers in general, however we want to define them, being in the form of CSO, NGOs, or transsectorial alliances that attempted keeping the city with novel co-design and co-produced services and products to tackle the, I need to admit somebody entering, sorry. Okay, thank you. So they try to equip the city with some new tools and new processes for dealing with social needs and social problems in an innovative way, or at least to deal with them, while most of the time cities are not able to at all. What collaborative digital social innovation is, we use the definition, the basic and general definition provided by the EU project, Digital Social Innovation for Europe, and it defined digital social innovation as a type of social and collaborative innovation in which innovators, users, and communities collaborate using digital technologies to co-create knowledge and solutions for a wide range of social needs, and at a scale and speed that was unimaginable before the rise of the internet. So it's very broad and general. What is interesting for us is the social aspect of the digital social innovation, which is social in means, that is performed through the collective participation of different actors, and is social in ends, because it serves the general benefits of society. So it is somehow provided and characterized by social ideal aspirations, and of course starts from real problems in local context. I'm sure we haven't included here any example, because we know you know very well what we are talking about. So what the benefits for urban governance? The benefits is the possibility, the benefits of mobilizing and triggering collaborative digital social innovation is given by the possibility to turn the social vibrancy into a resource for the whole community. But the point is, we need to understand how this kind of resource can be integrated into government and governance routines. And so it can provide widely acceptable, efficient, and effective solution to the city problems that we actually, at the moment, have no specific indications about how to do it. So what we miss, we discussed about it yesterday morning, is our insights on how to turn the cities, the cities, into digital social innovation attractive and supporting ecosystem. So we need to know what conditions the city need to meet for triggering collaborative digital social innovation potential. And we try to identify to get some indications, to enucleate some indications on the pushes, the rationality, and the potential impact of collaborative socio-technical innovation in for public organization and institutions. So to provide this kind of insights and indications, we identify two sets of qualitative analysis methodologies. The first one is modeling and simulation, and the second one is semantic social network analysis. Actually, it's the other way around in the rest of the presentation. So we decided to focus on a double perspective. So to have a double perspective to face the problem. First of all, entering into innovators community, we identify one which we know quite well, which is called Edge Rider. Is a big community of about 5,000 people, actually spreading across the world, but with a strong presence in Europe, because it's a Europe-based association and enterprise, not-for-profit enterprise, which work on digital social innovation project. And we also decided to have a city-based perspective, and we identify Madrid, which is the location Alberto suggested as particularly exemplar. So two perspectives and two methodologies. The idea is to explore and to validate a sort of co-creation paradigm to understand the effect on the organizational transformation of public institutions and public administration. The first attempt at investigating a community is articulated in 4 steps. A background analysis, which is actually common to both the approaches, which envisage online data mining and data mapping, and of existing collaborative projects that can be relevant to identify some general insights and general conditions. And then we can start with the data retrieval, which is based on community online conversation. So entering the digital social innovator community identified, we stimulate debate on this specific topic and retrieve information which are already present in the platform of the community itself. And we elaborate this data, we code this data to make them computable, and then we apply the semantic social network analysis to this data. And as a result, we got maps, conversational maps, which identify key clusters of interest and reasons and motivations for the digital innovators to work in specific contexts rather than in others. So we want to see in practice how innovators work in their daily, how they conduct their daily activity. And then of course we analyze the data and try to understand how a city can attract, support and exploit the agency of, well, exploit is not a very nice term, but use somehow, take advantage of the agency of these innovators communities. The second approach is on the city. So we want to investigate the city context through a model and the simulation of the dynamics of collaborative digital social innovation processes in local public organization. And Alberto, I think, can say a couple of words about it because he's more expert than I am on this point, and then I'll take back the floor for the last two slides.
Yes, I mean, the idea is, and we have chosen Madrid as, well, case study. I have already researched on the many initiatives that they have. Probably what we are missing, I mean, I have studied their initiatives for social innovation as a general framework, but we have spotted a bunch of them that relate to digital social innovation, particularly related to living labs and to two hackathons took place during the pandemic. So we believe that we can address what they have done and try to connect not only the initiatives and the participants and the dynamics that happen within the groups that integrated into each of the initiatives, but also their footprints, digital footprints, etc. And with that, connect with the organization, with the public organization, so that organize or coordinated the event, so that we can have this idea of how these type of events, collaborative events, also impact, if anything, in the organization as sources of potential innovation or transformation in the organization, at the organizational level. So from the individual level, which is something that we're working right now on, into the organizational part, and see if there is any connection with decision makers, or if there is any break of the silos. These things that we have probably commenting all over the week.
Right. So the expected results include indications on what conditions are able to attract digital social innovation communities, how favorable conditions can be created and supported to keep digital social innovator in the city after having attracted them. And the point is how digital social innovation can be integrated into the city government and governance routines, and with what effect, of course. And this is a sort of architecture of the project and timing. It's very likely that the timing would be with 6 months more, actually, because you need to include other activities to be performed at the same time, and we cannot avoid. But anyway, they show you that there are two branches. The the first one on community investigation and the second on city investigation, that together feed the research reports. And that's all, Folk. Thank you.
So much for Alberto and Chiara, and I know Zygmunt also contributed, but he's not there at the moment, I think, if I'm not correct. That's great. I have a few comments to make, but before I make mine, I'll just open the floor and see Hank, Marina, Igor, do you want to come in, or anybody else?
Well, there are a lot to process. It's very, very well structured and very interesting, but probably we could go more in depth in some of the steps that you described. For instance, what do you expect from the this part with the data mining? And I think it's like a sort of online ethnography, if I understand well what you were thinking of, because I don't know very well how this online organization edges this. Sorry, I don't know exactly how it is. So since it's one of the subjects of the study, maybe personally I was curious to know more about this. And another question was, how do you see the two streams to integrate? Because they kind of can, you know, dialogate. The findings can also be integrated, triangulated. And so I was wondering if you saw a final outcome from the triangulation of all these studies. Yeah.
I can probably
maybe let's see if there are other questions, because I think that, you know, I'll certainly like to build on what Marina said. Before we do that, any other inputs, immediate reactions? Okay, well, while people think about it, I think I'll just elaborate and add a little bit on Marina's. I think that this was very interesting. I mean, when Chiara, you were talking, you know, obviously it sounded like this community is not just in Madrid, but it's a much bigger network. And so what you're mapping there is the thickness of relationship between the innovators, the dialogues. So you're mapping the network, but it's not quite clear how that network maps to the places where there's different groups are active, and therefore the relationship between the network and places, which seems to be one of your key expected outcomes to understand what is the link between, what are the factors, or so to speak, that can facilitate this digital social innovation to happen. It's a bit unclear there. And the same applies to the modeling and the simulation in Madrid. I mean, yes, you have communities, yes, you're mapping, as I understanding, also their contacts with governments, but to what extent would you be able to identify what impact they have? You know, what is the outcome of the process of innovation, and how do you know, impact, you know, the outcome for whom, and how do you, you know, relate to that? That didn't seem to be so clear from this one. So, and then again, as Marina was saying, how the two intersect. So what do you learn from Madrid? How does that inform and maybe generalize through the analysis of the network? That seems to be something that maybe needed another extra day to get there. So this is not criticism, it's just questions that, you know, sort of can be, you know, the subject of the next, you know, virtual meeting, or hopefully, you know, a beer together, or a glass of wine, or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. Can I answer first, perhaps, because the first two questions were, and okay, thank you. You raised some point that's actually are very relevant, and you had to consider that we have a very short time to integrate.
Well, we definitely know that, and also after a whole day of keynotes. So you were working at the afternoon after all day we discussed. So
yes, about the first questions Marina proposed, it's about the community and the nature of the community. If I'm right, the community is called that rider. I think my my sharing screen is paused, or you okay, resume share.
We can still see. You can also use full screen if you.
But can you see my screen?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so you see yourself now. Sorry, it's because. Okay, so this is the public platform of Edge Riders community, and it's something for.
No, we're still seeing the slides, Chiara, because at the moment you're sharing the slides. If you're trying now to show us your website, then we don't see it. So you need to stop sharing and then share.
Sorry.
But it doesn't matter. It's just about a concept, you know. It's
okay. But so you have the.
In the meanwhile, I would like also to encourage the participants of other groups to have comments, because
and I mean, we are all conscious of the constraints, you know. And as you said, the process of getting to know each other, it's really the outcome. And in a way, you know, what you're presenting here was the means to get there. And in the end, if you generate also some good ideas that can be elaborated further, that can become, you know, the ideas for a new project, that's fantastic. But, you know, let's put everything in the right place, okay? So.
Well, this is about collecting money. So if you know any funding sources for this, just let us know.
Hank is the man to ask.
Hank, okay, good.
They have deep pockets.
Crowdfunding. So basically, the community. Sorry, I was saying this is the website if you want to have a look, and it's a very large one, but it's based in Brussels. So it's a Europe-based community, and it works on a number of projects, all of them dealing with the use of digital tools, in-house developed tools to face social problems. So this is
how Brussels will look at the end of that process, is it?
Right.
This is actually Matera. It's in the south of Italy, where they have been working also. And there are some videos explaining their aims. So I think they are really cool. So it's nice to see what they do and what we try to perform together. Marina, I think I may have lost your question about Edge Riders. Anyway, the second.
Do you want me to repeat the question? Do you want me to repeat the question? No.
Yes, please.
I don't understand. No, one question was about this, about the community. So to just know a bit more about how it's organized and what they're doing. And the other question was about how the findings from a two-stream
integration. Yeah. Yes, this is a major point in the very sense that it was intended to be done in the last part of our conversation, but we haven't had enough time to do it.
That's what we assume.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the integration is, the point is, if we use two perspectives, we are able to address the problem from different angles and understand how communities of innovators behave and how public administrations face their relationship with this kind of people, which are very new subject in the public space, actually. So very difficult to frame and to define. To give you just an example, I proposed the project last year with Edge Riders to the EU. They work a lot with the European funding, but when I proposed this project, we had some problems in defining the nature of the organization itself, because it is a big think tank attached to a social enterprise, which is it's a SME, but it's not for profit. So it's a very hybrid in nature, and this kind of social actors are really popping up everywhere, and we need to find a way to deal with them, also from the public administration, public institutions perspective. So the integration is crucial, because the final report should be a sort of manual that gives you the opportunity from both the sides to enter into contact and to produce something which is valuable for all the community, for the whole community.
Thank you, Chiara. Thank you, Chiara.
Yeah, from my side, regarding generalization also, this is a 12, as long as maybe 18-month research. So, I mean, if we were able to address what Chiara just explained, and also the connection that happens in a city of 3 million, nearly 4 million people, probably would be just good enough. And then leave room, obviously, for generalization towards other cities, maybe smaller, maybe larger, but also to other levels like regional or.
You should ask for more time and more money, you see.
That was what I was pitching for.
Why limit yourself to 12 months? Just ask for 2 years and there you go.
I mean, it depends on Henk. We are already depending on Henk. Henk, please.
Good.
Then it has to be in the Netherlands.
Yeah, I guess.
Anybody else wants to come in? Any more comments, requests? Should we have a look then at group 2, see what they propose? Who is presenting in group 2? Somebody must be.
Christina.
All of us. We said all of us. Ilona, don't do that.
Okay.
Yeah, but we need somebody. Is anybody of you sharing a slide?
Yes, I am.
You are. So we need to make you the co-host. That's why I'm asking. You know, it's.
But the idea is to have an open discussion because we are not as prepared as our colleagues.
That's fine. As long as whoever is wanting to share is a co-host, then whichever way you organize yourself, it's fine. So, Christina, you're ready to go.
Yeah, she's giving co-host rights.
Okay. Let's see if I manage them. I've never used Google presentations, but we thought it was useful for working on it together.
Sure.
So,
If you find the full screen visualization.
yeah, I'm trying to find it.
Yes.
As I said, I haven't. Okay, here maybe.
Great. Yes.
Okay, so I'd say that Gianpaolo should start because he's the main, the person behind us thinking about policy recommendations. Is Gianpaolo there? He's not here. Awesome, so we'll go on without him. Then yes, we had a lot of discussion about what we should be working on, what should be discussing. And we agree pretty fast about policy recommendation, mostly because I was curious of how it worked, because that's a new field for me. And I remember Natalia said more or less the same. And so we followed Gianpaolo's and Ilona's ideas on that. We're curious about it. And I think, at least for me, the discussions were really interesting. We had a lot of going back and forth on important topics discussed these days. Especially, we started focusing on how the emergency situation we are living in, like I'm talking about the pandemic, of course, has been accentuating the inequalities, the social inequalities that are present in our society. I don't know, Ilona, do you want to pitch in too? We said we're not, yeah.
I can. So as Gianpaolo suggested that focusing on inequality in contemporary communities is a big issue for policy writing. So we decided to focus on this issue, and we discovered that it would be important to prepare a quite universal policy recommendation for European countries because of the multicultural societies. So we decided to involve. Can you just back Christina for a while? Yes, thank you. We decided to involve not only migrants as of course the main target group of the policy, but also elderly people, persons with difficult access or lack of knowledge about the ICT, and just to prepare a special track, maybe even a kind of apps for help them to be well informed and to survive during the pandemic, because that it doesn't mean that if you are migrant, you are poor and you live on the street. So you are a normal citizen and you need the information. And the situation which happened during the COVID proves that it was even harder for all people with any kind of difficulties with accessing the information to feel safe in that pandemic world. So that's why we involve those groups as our target groups for policy recommendation.
If you want, I can continue with the
Yes.
how. Okay. Can you hear me? Because I'm having some technical problems. Can you hear
Loud
me?
and clear.
Okay. So for the how, we decided to take a bottom-up approach and also to focus on resources allocation, but always taking into account the real needs and also the will of the target groups, because as Gianpaolo explained also, I think in the main room in one of the keynotes, he had some experiences distinguishing the design of policy making and the real will of the people these policy makings were aiming at. So we decided to take those principles into account, and taking into account these things, we focus on the education realm. So we noticed some differences or a breach regarding social inequalities during the pandemic time, with some people or some society groups having difficulties to access to quality education. And also we detected a lack of tools and participation spaces for some people during this situation. We, for example, focus on a case that Christine and myself have lived during this pandemic, which was that being foreign students in different countries during the COVID health emergency, we had to look for English information in non-English native countries, and this was not always easy. So we imagine that even if you don't know English or the language of the country, it must have been difficult for a lot of people. We decided also to take or to put some emphasis on the public and private sector cooperation. We will present in the final slides some examples of specific measures that we could adopt, and we will see that for some of these measures it will be needed a cooperation between those sectors. We also thought that engaging in NGOs would be interesting, or in general, any group that could enhance cooperation and communication among the members. Again, we thought that some groups have been very disadvantaged during the pandemic, and the solution to end up with that is to include them, whether in processes, whether in a phase of public consultation, or take them into account when designing the policies. And of course, continuous communication with the stakeholders would be vital. We have also detected a lack of communication with these groups during the pandemic, that has also, in our point of view, maybe enhanced lack of cooperation on their side, because they can feel not included, or also because in fact they haven't been.
So what actually summed it up, because we only had 3 hours to discuss these things within the day. So, and as you saw, there was a lot of discussions going on. So we thought about applying universal design principles as defined by Steinfeld and Meisel to the policy design process, especially focusing on the principles that we listed here, and that are awareness, understanding, social integration, personalization, and cultural appropriateness. This mostly with the idea of guaranteeing more involvement of the stakeholders on a certain issue that is, in this case, like the pandemic. So anybody that's involved, so everybody, but for the specific measures to the pandemic, to involve the stakeholders that are touched by that measure. We have made a list of suggestions as some examples, as Natalia was saying, but the list could go on, because honestly, it was just 3 hours. So we had a lot of discussions on how to get there and how to find the ideas. So it's to be continued in theory.
Yeah, just a couple of things also.
Yeah.
That we have also approached all the project from the point of view of the discussion we had the other day regarding trust in governments, and also we were discussing about transparency. That's the way we arrived to these principles, or to these universal design principles. So trying to enhance transparency by the public sector and as a way to obtain trust from these groups that have been, let's say, not enough regarded. Yeah, that was.
And we sort of, I don't know if you noticed at the last slide, which Christina presented, there was a gamification presented. We thought that for this multicultural society, this kind of activities based on gamification, quite universal signs, which may be interpreted by everybody without knowing the language. Just the sign codes may be a kind of useful tool for building a kind of universal tool for engaging and informing people during the crisis situation. So we are planning to prepare some kind of possible solution based on digital technology, using gamification as one of the mechanisms. That's basically what we are planning. But as Christina mentioned,
well, thank you all for these excellent ideas, and I think that there are two ideas which I think are particularly useful and well worth considering. I think that your focus into trying to reduce the social divide and explore also ways in which the digital can help in that form is very important. If we don't do that, the social divide will continue to be increased. And I think that the importance of involving the NGOs at the local level is enormous, because I mean, I see here watching televisions in different countries, both my own and the UK. I mean, you can see how so often central government takes decision without consulting the regions. The regions take decisions without consulting their cities and their places. And the cities that implement those decisions or take their own micro decisions that have impacts. And often, certainly I see the case in Italy, but I'm sure it's places elsewhere, that NGO, charities, and a lot of voluntary organizations, so-called, you know, sort of fourth sector in a way, is filling a gap that the government social services are not filling, and they have a huge role to make life livable for many communities, and they are never consulted. So they are faced with the brunt of the decisions that are taken way up the ladder, in a way that they are almost forced often to shut down operations, and you know, and that leaves a huge gap on the provision of services and help to children, the elderly, the more marginalized group, etc., who for a long time have been relying on these organizations to provide them that lifeline. And I think that, you know, having, you know, sort of a deliberative project that tries to involve these communities from the bottom and trying to design and act as, if you want, the interface between the choices that are made at, you know, at various levels of particularly of city government, I would say, or metropolitan governance, and the impacts, you know, those who are at the coalface with the communities is enormously important. And there is also a role also for gamification to help in some of these communication issues, even just to be able to find the route to the nearest clinic, where to get information, where to get food, hot food, where to get, you know, a swab if you need a swab, you know, sort of these kind of things can all be put in a gaming environment, so that, you know, you become, you know, more familiar to where those places are and how they change, because, you know, the crisis has also changed the functions of many places. So I think there's a lot of very good ideas there that I would really encourage, and maybe they can link up with Project One in order to see how you can leverage these social innovation platforms and communities in order to scale those processes up. But, you know, a lot of excellent ideas, so thank you.
Thank you, Mike. It was really great pleasure to work with girls. I would like to thank you girls for today's presentation, as we were lost a little bit without our master. Master has left today. I mean,
that's a good thing. That's a good thing. You know, that's excellent, because, you know, as we said, you know, to me, always the key thing is that you've got to know each other and started sharing ideas and interests.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I think at the beginning, when we were just preparing with this, I think that many of you had, you know, obviously understood that they were coming to present their paper, their research. And we said, no, this is not the traditional conference. This is where we want to have discussion. You will get a lot more feedback about your ideas by discussing to others than just presenting a paper and having, you know, there's 2, 3 minutes, 4 minutes of question and answer, where, you know, you don't get that much. But, you know, often in the coffee breaks or in these virtual rooms, you get a lot more feedback about your research, your ideas, and how to develop further. So we hope that was useful.
It was wonderful idea. Thank you, Max. It was really a great pleasure to cooperate with the whole group, and especially I would like to thank you, Christina and Natalia, for being so brave and so active with preparing the presentation. Thank you, Gareth.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ilona.
Marina, anybody else wants to have a comment?
Chiara?
Marina?
Yeah, hi. I have a question.
Chiara has a question.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah. Just a very quick question. It's about the engagement issue. We talked about it yesterday and the day before, and it's sort of late. Have you, during the discussion, have you imagined the way to engage the more vulnerable people?
Yes.
Yeah, because this is a major issue, and we always confront with the lack of engagement, the lack of participation, and especially for people who feel a bit outside of the society, so to say.
Yeah. That's where the NGOs came in, because we thought that oftentimes in these situations, associations on the territory are actually more useful to help connect with people that are on the outside borders of society for various reasons. So involving them in the designing process was the means to get to have a contact and an exchange with the most vulnerable groups. So that's where we decide
And
why
I
we
think
decided
it's
to
a
be
very
involved with
sensible,
them.
because often they also know within the communities who are the key sort of people that have, you know, sort of the ability.
Yes, the idea is that the government doesn't know, actually.
Absolutely not.
So you need somebody there.
And so from my research, which I'm doing at the moment, I'm interviewing NGOs, and they prove what you have just mentioned, Max. There is a huge gap between what they are doing and what the local government knows about their work. And there are just a few who are cooperating with local governments, and you can find really a lot of NGOs, and very often they are struggling because of lack of money, but they are doing something for the community, and they are extremely important in that case. They must be heard, simply what they have to tell us. So that's I think it's really something to do for us. For the future.
Alberto has his hand up.
Yes, I sort of agree with that. That is true that there's a gap between what the government knows and what the NGOs know. But also there is a gap between what the NGOs reflect or tend to reflect, because they usually process and filter the information towards their goals. Obviously, they need to survive somehow, so they need to sort of translate whatever they see into something that is that makes an impact. And so we researchers on these things, particularly on engagement of vulnerable or invisibilized citizens or stakeholders, put it in broad, we need to learn their language. It is true that obviously it takes time and takes effort and another type of research or field research, but that is something that I am finding. I mean, I need to say, and probably you all require a lot of time until you get the language right, only the language. And beyond that, the way of accessing those people and etc. So it's just not. I mean, I tend to always say that we, instead of looking into groups, we should better look into the individuals, and then from the individuals jumping back to the groups. I mean, my take.
Thank you, Alberto.
And I would say that it's NGOs understood in a very broad way, like every group that can reflect the society composition, like we were also talking about parents associations in schools, or for example, I'm thinking now about some religious groups that that also meet beyond religions, celebrations or things like that, more to do free time activities or things beyond just the religious activities. So in general, any group that has an impact on the society life could participate in those kind of initiatives.
That's active on the territory. Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing that you may wish to consider is that you know, one of the potential dangers has always been, when you work with communities, that, you know, you arrive, you do your PhD, you use the community to extract a lot of information, to write your paper, your research, then you finish your research and you move on, and they stay there. And you know, sort of after a while, they get very tired to be, you know, the focus of the activity of young and privileged, you know, sort of researchers that don't then head with the continuity in action. So that is always a bit of a dilemma. And I think that one of the things that then become also useful is to make sure that the expectations on both sides are clear, but also that you involve the local media. as well as the local official, because the media has an enormous power to then bring light to the conditions of that you're investigating, and then sort of kind of mobilized the kind of change which I'm sorry, but academic papers don't and often even European research projects don't, so I think that again, learning to work with the media is something that as researchers, particularly if you're trying to engage with the community and give continuity to the action that you're starting to put in place, it's something well worth considering.
Yeah.
Ilona, this is for you.
Okay, so Max, you are absolutely right. So especially now, media are not the fourth but first power in each society. So what from my observation, from my research, it is a big shift now in media, even in local media, but still, even if we have shifted from the paper into a digital version of the paper, still the communication via media is the main source of keeping the community together, or of moving the community. When I asked my interviewers, where do they look for information? What do they follow? Nobody, or very limited number of them admitted that they go through the website of the government or any kind of official sites. The media and mainly local media were those what they were keeping community informed, and they were keeping them together. And of course, nowadays social media becoming those platforms where they are exchanging information. But yes, I 100% right that we have to cooperate with media, and that's why I mentioned while we were discussing this policy recommendation, that media are really very important body for us to involve them in the process. That they must be active in that process. So a kind of education also may go through media, because they may participate in this education process somehow. So yeah, absolutely, Max. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody? Any further comments? No. So then, Angela, maybe we can stop the recording here.